Dobry wieczór. Tutaj William. Witajcie na cotygodniowym posumowaniu Polskiej Wiadomości ze mną, Williamem Murphy. We've a lot to catch up on this week following the Christmas and New Year break and our interview with Joanna Siewierska last week. We'll focus mainly on events over the past week, but also briefly summarise some significant earlier developments. The main news stories have included Poles at home and abroad support the 28th edition of Wielka Orkiestra Świątecznej Pomocy, or the Great Orchestra of Christmas Charity. An Irish Supreme Court judge joins a silent protest march in Warszawa in support of judicial independence. A leadership race is underway in Platforma Obywatelska to replace Grzegorz Schetyna, and relations between Poland and Russia continue to spiral downwards. We'll start this week with what's undoubtedly the highlight of Polish charitable fundraising activity, not just in Poland itself, but supported by Polish communities in a dozen countries worldwide. Wielka Orkiestra Świątecznej Pomocy, which held the finale of its 28th edition last Sunday. The fundraiser was run by 1,760 centres that coordinated the work of around 120,000 volunteers. The fundraising is for the purchase of medical equipment for paediatric surgery, specifically this year to improve the conditions of operating theatres, intensive care units and diagnostic imaging departments. An exception was the fundraising in Australia, which this year will go towards the amelioration of the bushfires crisis in that country. Among the items donated for auction by charity was a replica of Olga Tokarczuk's Nobel Prize medal and dinner with Robert Lewandowski. I can't imagine there were too many Irish bidders for the latter. While the final result of the fundraising for this year won't be announced until March the 8th, and with funds still coming in, by Sunday midnight the organisers reported they collected over 115 million zlotys. The finale was supported with fundraising events including street collections, bric-a-brac sales and fun charity tournaments by Polish communities all across the island of Ireland. I managed to experience the Gory and Wexford events on Sunday. Both were absolutely thronged with people, with a great atmosphere and evidence. And this was the best part for me. I discovered how delicious a proper Polish sausage is at the Gory event. In a reminder of the horrific event at the finale in Gdansk last year, on Monday crowds gathered in the city to mark the first anniversary of the death of Mayor Paweł Adamowicz after his stabbing a day earlier. Sunday's events in the city have been dedicated to his memory. Last Friday, a plaque in his honour was unveiled at the site of the fatal attack. Poland, and in particular the ongoing conflict between the government and sections of the judiciary opposed to their judicial reforms, has featured prominently in the news in Ireland over the past week, with the participation of Supreme Court Judge Mr Justice John McMenamin, representing the Association of Judges of Ireland, in Saturday's so-called March of 1,000 Togas, a silent protest march in Warszawa, which the organisers claim was to defend judicial independence. He carried with him letters of support from the Chief Justice, Frank Clark, and the AJI. The Chief Justice said in his letter that certain measures of recent Polish legislation have failed to fulfil the fundamental obligation to respect the independence of the judiciary. The march participants included judges and members of the legal profession in Poland, as well as from other European countries. They gathered in front of the Supreme Court building before proceeding to the Parliament buildings. There has been a long-running dispute between the Polish government and various European institutions over reforms to the Polish judicial system, which critics claim undermine the independence of the judiciary, but which the government maintains have been misunderstood abroad and are designed to make the system more efficient and accountable. The issue featured prominently in the Arthur Selmer extradition case. My own view is that the appropriateness of the participation of a serving senior member of the judiciary in a protest march in another friendly democratic state, effectively against the policies of that country's government, is highly questionable, albeit it generated positive coverage from much of the Irish media. This was the first occasion the Association of Judges of Ireland, which is not a formal representative body, but of which the majority of Irish judges are members, had participated in a public protest either at home or abroad. On Tuesday, the European Commission decided to request the European Court of Justice to suspend the work of the Polish Supreme Court's disciplinary chamber amid concerns that new regulations threaten judicial independence. The government spokesman, Piotr Müller, said that the changes are compliant with EU law. The Commission has already launched several legal actions against Poland. Of course, the government has been decisively re-elected in the meantime, after an election campaign in which arguments from both sides about Poland's judicial system were freely expressed. The opposition-controlled Senate is expected to reject the government's latest judicial reforms, but this can only delay the draft law which was approved by the lower house on December 20th. The changes would allow judges who question planned reforms to be disciplined. The Sejm has passed a bill to guarantee old age pensioners an additional payout every year, which is one of the government's election promises. The bonus payment is worth 1,200 zlotys this year. A similar payment of 1,100 zlotys was made last year, but the measure hadn't been guaranteed to the future. Turning next to some developments while we've been on break. Having just decided on Małgorzata Kidawa-Błońska as their presidential candidate, Platforma Obywatelska are looking for a new leader, after Grzegorz Schetyna announced on January 3rd that he won't seek re-election for a further 4-year term. Schetyna endorsed former Defence Minister Tomasz Siemoniak as his successor. The first round of the vote will take place on January 25th, with a second round, if required, on February 8th. A total of 6 candidates have obtained the required 10 signatures of members of the party's National Council to contest the poll. Relations between Poland and Russia have continued their downward spiral, with reported comments by President Putin suggesting that Poland was partly responsible for the outbreak of the Second World War, and ludicrously claiming that the then USSR helped save lives after it joined in the German attack on Poland under the terms of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. The remarks caused outrage in Poland, with President Duda accusing the Russian leader of post-Stalinist revisionism. Last Friday, the government spokesman, Piotr Müller, said that Russia was simply lying when it comes to the causes of the outbreak of World War II. Speaking about bilateral relations, he said that, at the moment, there seems to be a situation where relations are getting worse. The previous day, the Sejm passed a resolution condemning what it termed provocative and untrue comments by the Russian authorities. The resolution said that the greatness of a nation and relations between states can't be built on lies and falsifying history. It added that 2 totalitarian powers at the time led to the outbreak of World War II, Nazi Germany and the Stalinist Soviet Union. President Duda would be the main speaker at commemorative events for the 75th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz Nazi German concentration camp, which will take place on January 27th. His chief of staff, Krzysztof Schetyna, told Polish radio the president would avoid responding to the recent statements by President Putin about the Holocaust and responsibility for the outbreak of the Second World War. Schetyna said that, "I don't think we're going to respond to the Russian provocations in a way that would be an insult to the victims." Russia will be represented by its ambassador to Poland at the event. President Duda had last week said he declined an invitation to attend the World Holocaust Forum memorial event taking place in Jerusalem 4 days previously on January 23rd, because he hadn't been allowed to address the gathering, unlike the heads of state of France, Germany, Israel and Russia. Deputy Foreign Minister Paweł Lubianski said that it is unacceptable at a conference dedicated to the Holocaust for Vladimir Putin to be one of the key speakers and for Poland's president not to be able to speak. Last Wednesday, Defence Minister Mariusz Błaszczak confirmed that no Polish soldiers stationed in Iraq were injured in the Iranian ballistic missile strikes on 2 military bases housing US personnel in the country. Over 200 Polish soldiers are stationed in Iraq on a training mission. Of course, we now have a date for the Irish general election, and it's on a Saturday for the first time in the history of the state, with polling taking place on February 8th. I would encourage all listeners eligible to vote to ensure you're on the voting register, and if necessary, get yourself added in good time to the supplementary register of electors. Make sure your voice is heard, irrespective of what your political standpoint is. Tá všetko na činčidžin. Zapraszam na kolejny posumywanie z Cidžin o te same proże. Dobranoc.